There's a lot of stuff to unpack when it comes to specifically racism and discrimination against Asian people. Oh, yeah, well, that's what we're talking about today. I know a lot of people aren't intelligent about that, and that's okay, right? What's important is that you're willing to learn and that you want to learn about it. But this complete lack, you're not alone in that. A lot of people aren't very well informed when it comes to racism and discrimination. In California, the Asian people ran out of communities because white people thought that the Asian immigrants were taking their jobs. Asian people were the only jobs that were available to Asian immigrants was working on a railroad, and the conditions were terrible. They barely got paid. Many people died. There weren't any safety regulations. And it's annoying how no one talks about it because there's zero representation in the political atmosphere for there's well not zero. I'd say that there's less representation, and I guess it makes sense logistically. Asians only make up around 5% of the United States population last time I checked, but we experience a lot of shit. Earlier, I think last month, my sister's teacher said konnichiwa to my little sister because he knew she wasn't Japanese. He knew she was Asian, but he still did that for some reason. Asian people are put into this homogenous category when you have like Chinese people, Korean people, Filipinos, Japanese, all these different cultures, all these different groups, and a lot of them aren't very similar, right? Like the difference between a Filipino and a Chinese person, it's pretty apparent, like culturally. There are some pretty big differences between the two, but a lot of people tend to just group us all together, right? Ah, yes, Asian, you must be good at math. Ah, yes, Asian, you're bad at driving. Your eyes are tiny. Small dick, yellow hair, or bad teeth, yellow skin. And it's annoying. And people pass it off as, "Oh, well, you're a model minority," right? Like it could be worse because other POCs, other people of color have it way worse. No, Snail, that's not what we're supposed to focus on right now. Yeah, it's always something different, right? It's not wrong to guess wrong and make mistakes. Like, mistakes happen, cool. But, like, why the do you care so much? Sometimes I'd like to have a conversation not about my race. Sometimes I'd like to not, have you assume or ask that, right? There's a time and a place. But whenever I meet someone consistently, one of the first things that they ask me is, "Where are you from?" Like, that's not just one or two interactions. That's almost all of them. I always say that I'm from Canada, or I'm from Michigan. Well, first they say I'm from Michigan, and then they say, no, really, Canada. Because fuck you. Like, no, it's fine, Snail. There's a time and a place. But if that's the only thing that you ask them, it feels kind of disingenuous. And it gets annoying. Because oftentimes that's the only thing people ask us, and then they just off and do whatever the hell they want. Like, once they know, that's the only question on their mind. That's the only thing that they care about. Oh yes, I'm Canadian. But it feels really disingenuous, this whole movement right now of hashtag stop Asian hate. We'd like you to do that, but also stop just saying it, actually do something about it. Please, dear God. Try to change the way that you interact with people of color, to change the way you interact with Asian people. Again, sometimes people, I said this, I told this story earlier, but again, you weren't here. One of my friends works at a boba shop. She asks people their orders in English. She talks to these people in English. And then they still try to, like, these people who don't speak Mandarin, or white, try to talk to her in Mandarin. They say, like, ni hao, and there's a time and a place for these types of things, right? And generally speaking, in a lot of situations, it's not the time or the place. Ah, nice, dude. Send pics. Love Vietnamese food. Asian food is great. One of the things that I've noticed is that Asian food uses a lot more spices and aromatics than any other type of food, really. Like, whenever I cook European food, they always put, like, butter, pepper, salt, and then it gets exotic if you add some rosemary. But with, like, Asian food, like with Filipino food, yesterday I had chicken adobo. My mom puts, like, in everything. You get soy sauce, you have tarragon, you have not tarragon. What do you call it? I don't remember the name of it. I don't know the name of a lot of Asian spices. We just know it as, like, the black sauce or the fish sauce, soy sauce, seasoning, sinigang seasoning. You just add all these different types of seasoning. And there's just so much more. Huh? Oh, thank
Are
you,
you
Sanaya.
streaming right now?
Yeah.
Here's boba. It's Asian too. I don't know what this
It tastes like oatmeal. Why does it taste like oatmeal? What the hell? But let's get back to what I was talking about. Like you've asked Asian people before, like, oh, where are you from? That's great. That's fine. Like a lot of Asian people like to talk about that. I like to talk about that because it's my culture. It's part of my identity, and I like it when people show interest in my culture. What's not okay is when that's the only thing that you talk about with like your Asian friends. If the only thing you talk about with your Asian friends is their culture, it's a little. And to that end, a lot of people, not just me, because I've asked around, a lot of people have to take that into consideration, the fact that they're Asian, into consideration when they're choosing relationships. Does this person like me for me, or are they fetishizing me because I'm Asian? Like, this is more apparent for Asian women, because Asian women are seen as exotic and extremely fetishized, both online and, like, just in general. And it's stupid and annoying. I feel like I don't need to explain why that's wrong or why that would be annoying. But like I've experienced that too to some degree, where someone only liked me and the only thing that they ever talked uh to me about was like anime and food and Asian food and Asian languages. And it's like I just want to talk about video games. Oh. And even then, when I was talking about video games, they'd always go, "Well, it's kind of interesting how all Asian people are just like really good." And it's like, what? Why do you have to inject like culture into everything that we talk about? It's a little bit annoying. Not a little bit annoying. It's really annoying, actually. And it makes sense why a lot of Asian people tend to marry other Asian people. Sometimes it feels like that plays a big factor in how that relationship goes, or why that other party decided to take an interest in you in the first place. Like the only reason they decided to talk to you was because you're Asian. Yeah, and then you're never sure. Like when you do have other friends, do they think about that a lot? Are they only like especially with like male friend groups? There's something else I wanted to talk about, but I don't really have a fully formed opinion on it yet. There's an entire category on Pornhub for just like Asian porn, right? Not like hentai anime stuff, like just Asian porn. And I find it gross that like porn is racialized, I guess. It's I don't know, I find it gross. Like I don't know why I haven't really come up with some kind of sociological justification for it. I don't think it's okay, personally, because it fetishizes that race. I don't think that fetishizing any race is okay, really. Like BBC, I'm dog whistling. Some of you probably know what that is, some of you don't, and that's okay, and don't look it up. Ask your mom about it. So, I don't want this to come off as wrong, but it's a little bit annoying how, in this situation, with all the hate crimes that have been happening to Asians, the only voices out there right now are like, again, I don't want to sound like I hate white people, because I don't, but, the only voices that are speaking about this are just white, and there's not really a big platform. There's not really a big politically active Asian person. Like you think of Hasanabi or like Vosh, Destiny, Ben Shapiro, or Steven Crowder. All of them are talking about that, but I can't think of a single Asian person. I think that makes sense though, because me included, a lot of Asian people are just told to not deal with politics or not get involved with this type of stuff because it might make you look bad, and that's not great. What the fuck?
She almost hit me, right? Hi! Don't do it!
What the hell? This isn't a French thing, by the way. I've had this happen to me, and my sister has had this happen to me. A fucking teacher, like, they did this, and they're like, konnichiwa, to my little sister. Like, that happens way too often, and it needs to stop because it's so childish, and it's literally racist. Oh, I assume this isn't scripted. People like this are stupid, right? Ah, dear lord. Like, I'm disgusted, but I'm not surprised. Oh, thank you for the follow. Jackbox Party Box 5. Oh, ask away. I have time. I also have a muffin. I'm just gonna stare into my camera and eat until you ask the question, my guy. Alright, let's just get back to the video then. What is he doing with his teeth? I don't understand that. Like the weird, how Asian people have big or bad teeth. I know people make fun of Americans for having overly straight and overly white teeth, right? Like I have, oh, here we go. Your title says stop normalizing racism against hatred, but I don't really understand all the petitions about this. Do people really think that petitions will make people magically stop doing this stuff? It's bad, I know, but what is with some people's mindset? Okay, so let's talk about like legislation and petitions. On the personal level, I think we should advocate for people to just stop doing shit like this. If you know someone who's racist, who has these mindsets of, oh, he who Asian people bad, or he who Asian people have small eyes, then you talk to those people and you try to educate them. But on the broad legislative level, there should be things in place that instill a sort of authority against these types of things. The petitions, I don't think, are really supposed to change things innately. They're mostly supposed to just bring awareness about these problems. Because petitions don't actually change the laws. You can get 1 million signatures on a petition, and it won't really change anything legally unless the person that's been elected actually does what's in that petition. You, as a person, don't have any... I feel like people don't understand that. Like, when you sign a petition, you're not actively changing law. You're just telling who's ever in power, a person in power, that this is something that a lot of people care about. And if you want to be elected, you're going to have to do something about this. That's what petitions are. They don't actually change the law. And a lot of the time, it's just to spread awareness about these types of things. So on the personal level, you advocate for change. On the legislative level, you advocate for laws and regulations that help push people in the right direction. Like legislation against hate crimes or awareness. So people have always been racist against Asian people. I don't think anyone is stupid enough to argue against that, but the problem is that it's becoming more apparent now during COVID. People associate, because of the language that the authorities have used, like Chinese virus or Kung flu, they have associated the coronavirus with Asian people in general instead of social distancing and masks and things that actually matter. Instead, they see it as, oh, Asian people, it's all Asian people's fault because Asian people, blah, blah, blah. And it's annoying as fuck and stupid and regressive, and it's probably why all these hate crimes are existing. Obviously, Trump didn't directly tell these people to beat up, shoot, steal, stab, kill Asian people, but he definitely didn't help by using this type of language, by associating the current social state with Asian people entirely. Well, yeah, because all Asian, like almost every Asian country has like, they're pretty homogenous. They get in line pretty quickly is what I'm trying to say. And they already wore masks. Like in Korea, we just wore masks on the street because why not? Like a lot of people do that. So not much changed.
And she's nothing but a kind and gentle soul. One of the things that you really have to commend her about watching clips like this is her attitude during the whole situation. She never freaks out. She never curses at people. She never cusses them the fuck
Oh, I would
out.
definitely fucking punch that guy. Yeah, I have mad respect for this woman. Mad respect. She's so patient. So accommodating and empathetic. I would punch that guy because he's being a dipshit. America didn't do shit compared to China when COVID came around. Yeah, that is true, but also China had control over what data was released to the public, so in all honesty, the accuracy of how many people contracted coronavirus or died of coronavirus in China is not that reliable, and we're not too terribly sure about that. But generally speaking, a lot of countries did a lot better than America did in terms of regulating and dealing with it in general.
Fair. I think if it was anybody or most people in her shoes, I think they would flip their shit if this happened to them.
What are you talking about?
Where are you from?
South Korea.
South Korea, very nice. I'm from Turkey.
Turkey.
Yeah. People of other ethnicities can be racist too, not just white people. Black people, other Asian people too. Yeah, anyone can be racist, and it's seen as a lot less severe, I guess, for Asian people, because saying "ching chong," like, it's stupid as fuck and it's racist, but like it doesn't get as much attention. How often this happens? Because it's not often that I don't want to cause social discourse, but I'm kind of angry right now. But like, you don't see a lot of people just going on the street and shouting the N-word at black people. That doesn't usually happen. That never happens, I'd argue. That barely ever, unless you're like in a southern state like Georgia. Yeah, this happens a lot, to the point where it's happened to me. It's pretty bad. And people don't take it as seriously as they should. That guy. This guy right here specifically. That guy.
It's Korea?
No, no.
No?
Germany.
Germany. You.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bye.
Very nice. Korea is very good.
Racist.
Nice.
I honestly have no idea how she does it, because if that
How-
was me in her shoes,
how does she
I
do
would
that?
be just going off on those guys. I've done a few IRL streams myself, which you guys probably know if you've watched me a while.
That's
and I've
so, like,
experienced
impressive
my
to me
fair
that
share
she's
of
able to
racism
deal
myself, just doing
without
some
without
IRL
like
streams
freaking
on the
out.
streets of South Korea. So I really got to give it to Gianni. Her attitude is it's just golden in these situations. Now, apart from the instigators
She's
that
awesome.
bring on these whole situations, honestly, it's kind of sad just watching the people nearby that don't do anything. And if they
That's
do
another thing that I'd like to talk about. He's probably going to talk about it too, but I want to get to it first. When you see this happen, speak up and say something. Tell them that it's wrong. Like the woman back in the first clip. This woman back here, look at her. She saw this happen. She looked at it, and then she didn't say anything. She didn't say, "Hey, buddy, f off." There's a lot of different angles to go about this. And you could say that, oh, me, in my situation, at least, I don't need people, per se. Like, I don't need someone to save me from that situation. I don't want a white savior to tell another white guy why this is wrong. Right? If I'm capable of doing that, let me do that. I don't need you to save me. But in situations like this, where the person who is the victim doesn't really address it or doesn't say anything, that's when you should do something about it. That's when you need to speak up. When the person who's a victim is being silent. Otherwise, shut up and let that person talk. Let the victim defend themselves. I don't need a savior. Me personally, if this happened to me on the street, I don't need someone else to really stand up for me. I want you to stand with me, not for me.
And after these dudes who make fun of her walk away, she just proceeds to laugh.
What the f is wrong with her? What do you mean she just proceeds to laugh? You're part of the problem. You see something wrong, you say something. If someone was getting murdered, you don't just watch it happen and then laugh afterwards. You either call the police, or you like, help that person out. You keep that person from being murdered. Like, obviously the degree of severity is different, but I feel like this situation should be handled basically the same way.
Or she thought that making her eyes all squinty like those guys were doing was a genuinely hilarious joke. Comedic
That's so
gold. If you
childish.
didn't laugh, then you're
I
actually...
don't know why some people think that that's like comedy. Again, comedy is subjective, but it feels like some people haven't grown up past like the age of 5 when they thought this shit was funny. Like, one of the things that I used to do when I was like 3, it's not funny anymore, it's just pedantic and stupid, but there was like this thing that my friends would do, and I did it too. They were white, by the way. They'd go, "Oh, my mom was Chinese, my dad was Japanese, and look what happened to me. My eyes are all and it, like, yeah, that shit happens all the time. And I thought it was funny when I was like 3. Now that I look back at it, I think it's funny because of how fucked up it was. My parents knew this happened, and they just kind of stared and were like, "Well, shit, this generation's fucked." It's
idiotic and
completely
dumb. Now, I
normal
can't
within
say
our
the same for
society
the other
to do that
Asian
type
guy
of stuff,
behind
and
her,
it shouldn't
because he
be.
actually genuinely looks back and is like, well, what the fuck? What the hell's going on? What are these pricks doing? Like, that guy looks back a couple of times, but at
Yeah,
least
but he doesn't do
genuinely
anything.
laugh at the situation. I know that when most of us were growing up, we thought racist jokes and edgy jokes were just hilarious and just the funniest thing in the world. But once you get older and your brain actually starts to develop a
for
little
sure.
bit, you realize that it's really insensitive and it's just really immature. And if you find it funny, then you're just a douchebag.
Yeah.
I'm from South
Yeah,
Korea.
see, that happens. People just walk up to her and like, "Ni hao." For one, isn't she Korean? She's f***ing Korean. Like, that's what I mean when I say there's a difference between assuming and doing shit like this. He's assuming that she's Chinese, and then he acts on it. That's not necessarily racist. That's just ignorant as fucking stupid. He treats her differently, but he doesn't treat down or like talk down to her. It's stupid, and that needs to stop because it's immature, it's unempathetic, and it's annoying as. Quick detour to Twitter because I hate myself. Here it is. Steven Crowder tweeted about this, and I was pissed off. Can you watch Kung Fu Panda? I will literally kill you, Snail. Until he addresses this, until he addresses that he's done this, and explains to his fan base why it's messed up, and why it has damaged Asian communities, you don't get a platform to speak on, Steven Crowder. And I would like to petition for you to be kicked in the balls for every single time that you've said anything stupid. Again, I don't need people to stand up for me, I want people to stand with me. Talk about the things that matter.
I really got to commend Gianni's mentality during this whole thing and her approach, and just for being so calm and laughing it off as she has been doing. But there's only so much that Gianni
I don't think
can
she should,
take
though.
as well as.
I have a little bit of conflicted feelings about this right now. I don't think she should take that. She has a platform, she has an audience, and I feel like she needs to address that this happens and actively tell people that it's bad. Like, that sounds like just posturing, but when you just show these standalone clips of her being harassed, it's just depressing, and no one does anything about it too, which is the worst part. Probably the worst part is that no one stands up for her. No one goes up to these guys and says, hey, that's fucked up, don't do that.
Sorry, I will not.
What the hell?
Alright, if you're still watching the video by now and you at least have somewhat of a heart, then you should feel a little bad for her if you haven't already. Somebody
does she
literally
deal with
just comes
that?
up to her randomly and puts like a sticker on her camera while she's just minding her own business, trying to do a live stream. And I'm just asking to myself, why? Like, what do they have to gain from this? Well, what fun is it? Now, this clearly leads to Gianni
It's
getting
just
actually
psychopathic
emotionally
shit. Like,
upset to
the
point
type
where
of people who do this are probably, yeah, they're probably psychopaths. It's kind of like the same as how, you know, that bully, the kid at school who like beat the shit out of you and stole your lunch money. He probably, like, as a small child, burned ants with a microscope. Like, the amount of sadism and psychopathy that some of these people exhibit is concerning and scary to me.
she's crying on her live stream. It's just genuinely sad that people are still like this. These are grown adults that are acting so immature, and it's just pathetic. If you're an adult and you think things like this are funny, then I highly suggest you reevaluate your sense of humor. Edgy jokes can be funny, sure, up to a point, but they have their limits as well. I personally believe that.
Okay, so before he talks about his personal beliefs, let me talk about my personal belief, because this is my live stream. Comedy, again. Comedy is subjective. What people find funny is what they find funny. But in terms of the amount of net bad that some jokes can bring versus the amount of net good is a little bit, is a bit of a disparity. A lot of people advocate for the idea that no jokes, no topic should be off the table for comedy. That comedy should address all things fucked up. And I agree with that. But it's the way that they are addressed. Like, when it comes to edgy jokes about rape, people argue that you shouldn't ban jokes about rape, because the joke is, oh, haha, rape is fucked up. No one would ever do that, and it's absurd that it is. That happens. But there's also a demographic of people who say, haha, funny because rape not that bad, ha, he, who, funny. It depends on delivery. You have to make it obvious that the reason why this is fucked up, the reason why this is funny is because of how fucked up it is. Right? The joke behind saying ching chong to like an Asian person isn't that it's fucked up. You think it's funny because, Asian person, I'm 5. Like, what's the justification behind that? There is none. There's no hilarity background. It's just you being an asshole. I don't know any reason why that would be funny aside from, oh, they're just like a 3-year-old. They have the same mentality as a 3-year-old.
And I'm not making this video to say that all random ass people on the street you're gonna meet are like this either. But the fact is,
No, I feel like that's a majority. A majority of people don't say anything because they don't want to get involved. And that's proven contextually, that's proven in history. People see something messed up happen, and a lot of the times they're not going to do anything about it. And that needs to change. If you see something that's messed up, you should do something about it.
Hello. Hello. Very good girl. Welcome to Germany. I'm sorry about my German compatriot. I feel sorry. She's very good and come.
Woo! I like this man.
You are so kind, you know. Can I get
Yes,
your
of course.
I want to give this man a hug too.
What is your name?
My name is Philip.
Philip. Oh, danke schön.
But whatever,
good.
I just left it in. I think it's a fine
That's
touch.
great.
I think I think
That he apologizes for the random shit that other people do. I mean, it's f***ed up in the first place that he has to do that for them, but it's great that someone saw it for what it was. She was being harassed, and that helps. Hearing someone actively apologize for something that's happened to them helps.
Some people blame at German people, right? Don't do that. Every German people are so nice. Only them was bad, right? Only them made some mistake. Others are so nice.
I'm honestly astounded by Gianni's positivity during this whole
How
situation.
is she so optimistic? Like this guy is saying, I agree with him. It's impressive, but how? How the f is she so optimistic? What is it? Can I have some of it, please? Racism isn't started innately by hate. I don't think. I think that it's mostly caused by people being ignorant and stupid and not really growing up or given the opportunity to grow up because of the situation that they're in. You're not born a racist. You're taught that. You grow up in situations or in societies or social environments that are racist, and you're taught. And the hard part is unteaching that. And a lot of people need to learn that. It's depressing that this is still a problem in 2020. That with all this technology, with all this interconnectedness, there are still people that lack so much empathy.